So the first thing we're going to do is take the clump off the side so that we got a straight line all the way down to the side of the boot. So the toe would be there to match the toe on the diagram. The heel would be back in, and that will create your center line. So there's your center line on your diagram, and we'll put the center line in there. Once you have the center line in there, you can start to visualize how the toe is going to be shaped. So we've already got that part of the toe shaped, so we're going to have some material that we're going to have to take off on the side here in order to create that footprint. Okay. Now you can see that the center line is marked in on the diagram, and if I was to make the T across the top, it would be on an angle, right? So we've got to do the same with our carving. So there's the center line coming up, so I've got to cut that on an angle, and what that does is helps you visualize how that foot is going to be. You start from the toe and work your way back. Likewise, the heel has to be turned as well, doesn't it? So we're going to turn that heel as well. Very little bits of wood, but it helps you visualize how the shape and the way the boot is actually turned out. Okay? Okay, so now we've got the general shape of the sides, and we've got the cross, the top and bottom. But can you see this line here coming across here? It's in the wrong spot, isn't it? Well, that's because his foot has got to turn to it. So you're going to have to change the bottom design of that. So in order to do that, you've got to take wood off of this side here and lower it down and get a plane from one side to the other in order to turn that foot so that it's got a kind of a twist coming in. You with me on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
How far down is that? Because my air lines are crazy on these.
You know,
a sharper angle.
well, I'll go ahead and carve it and then bring it around. So once you've got that shape, then you can just about take a pattern off the bottom of that foot there and mark it on the bottom of your foot here and create that shape. Now I like to have the bottom of a cowboy boot thinner, and if you notice it gets wider as it goes up the side, but I like the sole to be a little bit smaller, and then I can create an ankle in here and get that part of it going. But I like to have the bottom of the foot a little bit like the sole, narrower. But that's a personal thing, so don't be afraid to mess around with that. I'll go ahead and mark that out. So there's mine drawn on. Just kind of the way I envision how that should go. And you can see that I've taken advantage of the outside shape here, the way the cutout is. I've got to take more material out of this side, obviously. That had to stay there to accommodate the ankle, which is going to be wider up above. So this is one of those times where you're going to have to leave a little bit of material above in order to create the ankle. So now you've got to, once you've got the bottom of the foot established, we'll work up from the heel up. So the heel is quite narrow, so I've got to remove some wood on both sides of the heel. I just put a mark there to give you the idea. But I'm going to start hollowing out that, and I'll be getting rid of a bunch of wood in this general area here. But you got to leave the ankle on both sides. I'm starting to shape the ankle, so by taking a hollow out of here and bringing it around towards the heel, that creates the ankle on the inside, and the same on the outside. You can see that there's a bubble there, and by making the hollow in front of that and underneath it, you create the bubble for the ankle. Okay, I went ahead and I've done a bit of rounding off on the toe and on the foot up past the heel. Now I got to find another landmark on here, and that'll be the top of the boot. So how do you do that? Well, I use a pencil all the time. You can use a compass, whatever. So starting at the heel, you put your pencil on the diagram, then you can come up and you can mark that on where the top of the boot's going to be. So roughly about there. So don't be it doesn't have to be exact. The thing to be aware of is the shape of the top of the boot, and you can see that from both sides are going to be the same. So they have these little side pieces on here so the guy can pull his boot up. Quite often there's a little flap in there that you can put your finger in. So this is going to be a kind of an up and down shape. It could be just a straight curve as well. This is more of a curve on this side. So you can make it whatever shape you want, but the thing to recognize here is that it's going to be below the knee, and it's going to come more or less to a point on the front. All right, so mark that on, get you whatever shape you want, and then we'll carve it out. So there's my boot, the top of the boot more or less marked on. That's kind of the way I would envision it. So then I'm just going to take a V-tool and cut above it in order to remove the wood and narrow down the knee and leave the boot wide. So there it is with just it notched out. So I've done a fair good notching on it. So then once you've got comfortable with the boot, the top of the boot and the shape of the boot, then you can shape the rest of the leg. And of course his leg is quite narrow. It's narrowed down quite a bit. Okay, so let's take another look at this. So can you see the heel on a cowboy boot is nearly like a woman's heel. It's really quite high. So there's a big arch in here. So you've got to decide where you're going to put that in, mark it out, and then remove the wood. So we'll go ahead and set one up and hopefully have it, there it is. So if I was to mark that out as to where it is, it would be roughly there, and I'm going to make a big arch in it, something like that. Does that show up? There, that's better. So then mark across the bottom where that heel is going to be. And that finds it for the other side for you. I'm going to move that heel back a little bit. So there's my heel established. Turn it over. Give you an idea of where the heel is going to be. So the next thing is to decide on the sole. And you notice that it's a fairly thin sole. Comes across, then follows that same line, and then comes up for the heel. Come up quite high for the heel. Sometimes you can have a double heel in here, sometimes you can have a single. So you could put a secondary one in there if you wanted. But it looks really nice with that. And all I use is a small V-tool to carve that out. So I'll just go ahead and show you. Just come across, follow your line across. I'll do a little bit here and then I'll pass it around. And you can see that creates that nice shadow line that's required to give the indication that there's a sole there. It's that simple. And same with the design, the design that's in the boot. It's all done with a V-tool. Get all the outside shape done, and then put the design in afterwards. But get satisfied with the shape of the boot first. To me, this boot is still way too heavy. I want to make him look like he's a skinny, long guy, so I'm going to have to make everything a little bit skinnier. Now, this is a very roughed out boot, but it gives you the idea. Now, the knee has to fit in behind here. And if you think about a boot when it's in motion, when the foot is actually in motion, it's quite loose at the top. And at certain points, it's tight at the back or tight at the front. So work that into your design if you can. It's not very prominent in the design here, but you can see when this foot that's on the ground, this other foot that we've never touched yet, when it's on the ground and it's moving forward, it's tight at the front and loose at the back. Okay? Very important to try and get that concept going. On the other boot, it's kind of the other way around, isn't it? The front is loose and the back is a bit tight. It's just because he's ready to take that next step. So the pressure is down on the boot, and so it pulls it in tight at the back and loosens it up at the front. So kind of get that concept in your mind as to how the boot works. Okay?